Welcome to the Bloom Effect. I'm your host, Cassie Kellner, former chairside assistant turned team coach and founder of Everbloom. This podcast is all about the real stuff, honest combos, leadership lessons, and the heart behind thriving orthodontic teams. If you're ready to grow, lead, and bloom, let's dive in. Welcome to the Bloom Effect. I'm your host, Cassie Kellner, and this is the very first time that I get a dynamic duo. Like, you guys, you're paving the way. I am thrilled that it is with Dr. Sean Holliday and Brianna Fuentes. This is so exciting for me, and we're gonna nerd out on all the things today. So everyone should just be ready and be prepared. Thank you guys so much for joining me and for doing this.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
This is so exciting. You guys are together right now on site. Where are you? Texas?
We're in San Antonio. Yeah.
Okay.
From Florida to Hawaii and San Antonio. Is that in the middle?
In the middle.
Right? And then all the way over here in Connecticut. I mean, oh gosh, you guys, I cannot wait. Okay. So Brianna, you and I go way back to the consulting days. Sean, you and I have met a few times at meetings and things like that. And we had a conversation recently where I was like, I have seen your relationship behind the scenes too, and the trust that the two of you have built and your journey. And I've watched your journey and I've heard about your journey from Brianna. And I love this. And I think that nowadays it's getting a little bit better, but this is a rarity where you find an office manager that like it clicks and you trust, and then you get to evolve into all of these other things. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, is your kind of journey together. Everyone kind of love hates this part because you have to talk about yourself, but I'm going to open this up to the both of you on who are you and how did you get here? And you can go individually, you can play off each other, however you want to do this in your kind of dual situation over there.
Ladies first. So you get to go first, Bri.
Yeah. I'm going to go first because I love to talk and so does he. So
Oh, I can't wait.
I've been in ortho since high school and I kind of just evolved into it. I actually was supposed to be going to dental hygiene school and I decided to stay in ortho for many different kind of reasons. But I went from assistant and then I broke off from another team and I became like a free agent. Sean and I connected, and originally he didn't want to hire me because of my schedule. I had limitations on my schedule. So he was like, I can't have that much flexibility, which now flexibility is the key. But back then it was a little harder. Now we're talking like a decade ago too as well.
Right.
So more than a decade.
Yeah.
Wow, we've known each other more than a decade.
Oh.
Child. So when he hired me for a marketing position, and originally I didn't take it, and then we ended up back together, but we connected at a time where we were really evolving into many things. So his practice was starting to kick off and grow, and it turned into this. I was supposed to be there for marketing, and then I ended up helping him run the practice. And then we shared a laundry room as an office like a year during construction.
I love
and
that.
we sat with like a partition between us while people were making their lunch. It was like
staring at each other the whole time. We're like, we better put a partition here so we have some. Otherwise, we can't get anything done. Yeah, I know.
And there was a glass partition between us. And I was like, are you sick of looking at my face? He's like, it's just weird. Like, it's like, okay, whatever. And then eventually Sean made me a manager of the practice. And it was just he and I for a couple of years. And finally I was like, hey, I need help. We need help. We've grown so much and we're doing this together, and we realized we couldn't handle it, just the two of us anymore. So we ended up hiring and training other leaders and managers for the practice. But he and I have been through some great times, but also some really tough times,
Yeah.
personally and professionally. So I think that's a big thing too, is, you try to keep it separate, but it really doesn't happen. And I think that's where part of our trust comes too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Sean.
Now I'm don't live obviously in Hawaii. I live in Orlando.
Yeah.
So I'm a private consultant for members of his OrthoMasterClass and others too as well.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I didn't know that you shared an office that was also the laundry room, and then there was like a makeshift partition situation.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I have a
I mean,
picture
I
of
had a
it.
private office, and then that turned into a TC room, and then I was in the closet. Then we
It
took
was
like the lounge, and then it was the laundry room, and then she got kicked out of her office, so then we had to take up a space. So
yeah.
it's just part of the growth of a practice.
I
Sometimes
feel like this will
you
resonate with
adapt and you shift.
yes, it'll
Yeah,
resonate with so many people because like the evolution of like hopping around from room to room and going like, okay, wait, we have this room and people are sitting in it, but can we turn it into something else that will help with the growth because we're bursting at
Right.
the seams, right?
I lived in a closet for 6 months, and the fire marshal shut me down and was like, "She cannot be in that closet. That's a closet.
can I just take the door off?
The door off." And they said, "No, you can't do that." So finally, we were like, "We need to expand the office," and we did. We added another, I think, 1,400 square feet,
Yeah,
and we finally had our own offices.
yeah.
Oh,
So
I love this.
yeah, yeah.
All right, Sean, who's Dr. Sean
Is it my
Holiday?
turn now?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's yours. It's all you.
Uh, Yeah, I've been in practice now in Honolulu for 21 years, but I became interested in orthodontics in high school. My brother was a patient. My mom was doing adult orthodontics, and I was in junior in high school. I just decided orthodontics was my jam. It was it, and it so happens at the time I lived around the world a lot. My dad used to build U.S. embassies and things like that.
Wow.
So at the time, though, I lived in St. Louis, Missouri. And for any of you who know, St. Louis is the headquarters of the American Association of Orthodontists. And so I literally went to the AAO headquarters on Lindbergh Boulevard, and I said, "Hey, I want to be an orthodontist." And they gave me a pamphlet. I mean, the AAO is so good at advocacy. They had great resources and information about how to become an orthodontist. I realized I had to go to dental school, so I went to my mom's dentist to observe. I went to ortho to look at clinics to see if that's what I wanted to do, and I just love it. My dad's an engineer, my mom's an artist, so I was kind of born to be an orthodontist. It was like the perfect mix in my brain. It
Oh
was just like
gosh.
everything is perfect. I love problem solving, strategy kind of stuff, and I just thought it's orthodontics is a thinking person's game. It's a lot of planning. Strategizing, developing treatment plans. But I just love the art, science plus engineering and just the patient care. I think the relationship. I think it's very purposeful work. And my dad worked for corporation construction job because corporations. I just wanted to own my own business, and orthodontics is probably the best career that you can have an awesome job and the opportunity to own a business. So that's why I went. So I went to the 6-year dental program that they had at UMKC, the University of Missouri, Kansas City. I found out the fastest way I could get into ortho was to do 2 years of college and then 4 years of dental school. Um, and then I went to Chicago for ortho residency. It was amazing. It's like almost a 3-year program. So I went as fast as possible into ortho, and then I wanted to take the longest amount of time that I could in residency to
Mm.
learn what I you know, now love to do. And, I met a girl from Hawaii, so I moved to Hawaii. I'm not from Hawaii or anything, so I went there. And everybody told me not to go there. It's like the worst business environment, it's the highest cost of living. They were like, Sean, you're not from there. It was a struggle. Like the first year I was in practice, um, the associateship that I had was canceled because the senior doctor got divorced, so I couldn't stay as an associate, but he said I could sublease the space. The first year I made like 40,000 gross. Is like net was like 50%. So I was asking for forbearance on my loans and
Yeah.
yeah, so I went basically from scratch because the doctor said, "No, I'm sorry, I can't keep you as an associate, Sean, but here's 6 patients. You can have my office on these certain days." And then I just sublease space out of some general practice offices, whatever it could do to work. And it took almost 10 years to build my practice to where it was decent.
Hmm.
But I was always big into planning, 5-year, 10-year plans. But my vision was always to have my own practice. And so over time, and as Brianna joined, that was kind of what we were doing, is growing and phasing to the point that instead of us subleasing space from general practice or eventually as a periodontist office, and then now we have 4 of our own practices and I have 4 associates. So we quite literally, practice on an island, but we have, um, nice, nice practice. It's, you
Very
know,
well.
Sean, I think that this is really important because, and this is why I do this podcast, because you are such an intelligent human. You both are. And you literally started in a crazy amount of debt, right? And
mhm,
then it was like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna do this," but then it didn't work out the way I did it, so now I have to pivot, and then I have to do this, and then this happens, and, like, there are so many layers to an orthodontist journey, and a lot of times, as you know, in this industry, because you're both so incredibly connected, you see sometimes people at the top and people forget, right? These new grads, these people who
yeah,
are like, "Oh, I'm just an associate. I'm just taking an associate straight out of residency. I'm not going to buy. I'm not going to Oh, I think I'm going to do a startup." Like,
Yeah.
it looks like this really shiny, beautiful, wonderful thing
yeah,
from the day you get out, and, like, right? You're laughing because, like, the reality is that, like, you're, like, grinding and you're like, "Listen, I have to pivot and I have to do this, and these hurdles I had to get through." And I think that's the beauty of, one, being a business owner, right? But I think it's really important to see the evolution of where you were,
yeah,
and to hear that you guys were, like, stuck in a laundry room and, sharing an office in that way, and now it's multi-location, multi-doctor, multi all the things, lecturing, OrthoMasterClass, like, it's this do you hear this? Because sometimes I think we also forget to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Forget the
Yeah.
journey. You forget the journey.
You
I love to
do.
say I love to use the song like started from the bottom, now we're here. Like we really
Yes.
did. If you think about it, like
Yes.
we didn't grow overnight and we didn't have he didn't have a father who handed him a business, or
Mhm.
not that that's a bad thing, but
No,
we
yeah.
really went through the pains and struggles to get where we are.
Yeah, and then I didn't know, Sean, that you weren't from Hawaii. So, like, culturally, then you're trying to have to gain trust of the environment and the demographics and the people, right?
Yeah,
And oh my gosh, I learned so much. We haven't even been on just over 10 minutes. Like, I
yeah,
it's really, I think, incredible for people to hear these stories and to appreciate them, especially people who are just getting started right now or who feel so incredibly overwhelmed with
yeah,
where they currently are in the beginning stages. Or, I have plenty of clients who opened during a global pandemic and they were like, "What did I
yeah,
do?" I love that. I had no idea. So, I think that that's really important too. And for you guys to self-reflect and be like, "Can you believe this?"
yeah. I
Yes.
remember I would take dentists out to lunch, and I literally, I was charging everything on a credit card, and mounting up credit card debt because I was like, and I take them out to lunch, and they'd be like, "Hey, thanks, Sean, for lunch. You're a really great guy. We'll see what we can do to help your patients, but my so and so orthodontist is my cousin, or."
Yeah.
my niece or whatever, but it's great to meet you. And I was like, ah. So it's funny, and you start from the ground up. I think that's the important part. A lot of doctors see the end result. I think anything, it's not just in orthodontics. You see people at a certain point today, especially in social media, you'll see where they were. The important part is to look at the journey, understand that everybody started somewhere. And so it's hard to compare when you're in in the first floor, but the opportunity is always there. But it's funny, we went from, I was like doing lunch and learns or lunch, taking people out to lunch, doing whatever I could, to the point that Bree joined was as a marketing coordinator. It was the point that I just couldn't do it. I needed someone to to be my right hand on that end, to be social, to be the PR,
I'm chatty.
like chatty, and then complement the things that I'm not great at, So I think that's the main thing, is creating that synergy. And I think it's a time and place. I know you mentioned, like, for example, at first, honestly, I felt Brianna just we weren't ready. I didn't feel like I knew that she had left another practice. Yet there was some challenges, and it was just not the right time. But then when it became the right time for me, and I reached out again to her, and I said, how's everything going? And then we reconnected at that point. So I think life is fluid. That's important to understand.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love this. I love your journey, and we've talked about this. So I want you guys to kind of talk about the evolution of this relationship. I mean, clearly it started in marketing but evolved into something much larger than that. And we've talked about this kind of too, is what at what point, Sean, did you go, I have to pivot here and trust. And that person is going to be Brianna. And Brianna, what did that feel like and look like for you? Obviously, this stuff does not come overnight. We all know
Yeah.
this, right?
Yeah.
But how were you able to build that? Brianna, you made a really, really good point in the beginning of, listen, I think a lot of times we think of businesses, and sometimes we try too hard to separate personal from professional. And at the end of the day, you have to be professional. You don't have a choice. This is your job.
Mhm.
But you are in small practice, and these people you spend a ton of time with, and you genuinely care about them. And so there does sometimes the lines get blurred a little bit, because
Yeah.
and in my opinion, people may disagree, they have to, because these are also your people that
Mhm.
and so,
Spend
like,
every day with.
Yeah, and you
yes.
and you bring your whole self. So that's the other thing. We used to we called it PTS, which is the patient, team, and self. And the problem is that most of us try to set a hierarchy, like which is more important, right? You'll have people say, well, team always first. And some will say, well, patients always come first. Um, I I disagree wholeheartedly with any of those opinions. I think the problem is that you have to have all three in balance, right? And even for yourself, when we do a lot of leadership, I think for doctors, you need to think about your business life, your personal life, and your family life. And if you don't have that, and I don't want to say balance, because balance is a bad
Mhm.
word, but you have to nurture all three. And I get that at some point, sometimes business takes priority, right? And then family, and then it kind of rotates. But if all three are not healthy, um, you're in for a world of hurt. And the
Mhm.
problem is that you may say, well, I'm gonna not take care of myself, and I'll take care of my business and my family. But then yourself, your personal health then will impact the other two. In
Oh
other
yeah.
words, they all are interrelated. So um
And
yeah, I think that's
there
the
were
main thing.
times we had to get real with each other.
Yeah, I
Like
think that's
sometimes
the
I'd
main
walk
thing.
into his office and I'd be like, all right, turn off the professional, we're on friend talk.
Yeah.
And I'd have to tell him, you have to go home today at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
don't stay, go, go. Like, we'd have to sometimes,
Yeah.
put each other in check with that kind of conversations. And as much as you try to keep it separate, we had to check each other to balance
Yeah.
our lives out.
Yeah, and I think as orthodontists, we're performance driven, right?
Mm.
We are taught to perform. And I would say that what I learned is that orthodontics becomes kind of like a one person sport. You aim to achieve. The problem is that when you get to practice, you realize it's no longer all about you. And I know a lot of practices and a lot of friends that still practice that way. And it leads to negative things. So the point is I had like an executive coach, and I was just like, oh, this is great, this is great, this is bad. I told him I feel like I'm a Ferrari running a 12-cylinder engine on
Mm.
close to the red line all the time. And that's how it felt like to me. It's like I was just at that level, just before the red line,
Teetering. Yeah.
and so
Yes.
you tear into different things. And so it was exhausting. And the problem is that I just felt like if I just try a little harder, if I can optimize my time management, if I can like just squeeze a little bit more time or be more efficient with this. But then what I learned, what I needed to like regroup was just like, I need to stop doing things. I need to stop making all the decisions in my practice. And I need to start designing an environment, and I need to delegate appropriately. And that is a challenging thing. I would
Mhm.
say for most doctors, it's really hard because that's your baby. I already told you my whole story. Like,
Mhm.
hey, I went through all the struggles. And so all of a sudden you think like, oh, well, I can do that better. We're high performance people. So it's like, no, 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 no. Like, then you make all the decisions. And so it was hard at first. That's the trust that you have to
Yeah.
then say, okay, Brianna,
Let it
I'm
go.
tapping
Let it
out.
go.
And sometimes you do it just out of desperation. Like at some point you just say, I can't do it. What I hope, hopefully any of the listeners would just not learn from don't do it when you just can't handle it anymore. The,
Yeah.
the goal, or at least where I live at this point, because I would say, we're way more productive now in the practice and stuff. And I work a lot less, and
Mhm.
I do a lot of other things. Not to say that I'm still busy. I still, as a person, I'm that same, I'm driven, always doing things like that, but it's just a different scope. And I have a team that handles a lot of stuff. And
Yes.
even though you think that you do things a lot better and that your decisions are right, my name's on the door and all that kind of stuff, I think it takes some humility to understand like some people can do it better. And sometimes it takes patience, understanding that, you know, I make mistakes and they'll make mistakes, but understanding that just because they make a mistake doesn't mean that I take control. And that's the problem. I think most orthodontists like to take control. And what I learned is that you seek order and not control. But we're all
Mhm.
control freaks, so that's
Yeah.
the tough
Yeah,
part.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
listen, the reality is that you guys work in millimeters, let's get real, right? So, like,
Yeah,
your the precision is real and is
that's in the
serious,
brain.
right? It's how you're wired, and that's a beautiful thing, but, you know, Brianna, how were you able to get him to trust you? And obviously this evolved over time, right?
This is the best
Let's
story
hear it.
because people
I can
think
hear
it's
it.
this great thing I did, and there's this great moment, pivotal moment. You know what it was? I grabbed him by the shoulders and I stood in front of him and I shook him and I said, "You need to just trust me. Can you trust me? Say, trust me." He's like, "I trust you, Brianna." I'm like, "Do you mean it?" He's like, "Yes." And that's where everyone thinks there's this guy. I'm like, he just had to relinquish
Yeah,
the control over the practice. And listen, I made mistakes.
of
Yeah.
course.
Trusted me with the practice.
And by the
And
way, trust does not mean that you absolutely let her do whatever,
right,
or that you don't,
right.
Yeah.
correct and coach. But I think that's where
Well, it's
we
pure
realize that it's not
delegation.
like blind trust or whatever. It's just like working together, right? And then also allowing her, empower her to make the decisions. And you did pretty good.
I did. He also, and I think this is great that, if people are listening, they should understand he also at that point invested in my growth. And that's
Mm,
what's missing, I think, a lot of in practices is
mhm.
that you
Agree.
want this spectacular leadership or management or whatever you want to call it, but you have to invest in it. So he would say, "What do you want to do?" And I say, "I want to go to this. I want to go to that. I want to, and he'd buy me books. And it I'd get books sent to me, and I'm like, "What is this?" He goes, "Oh, I forgot. I gave that to you to read." I'm like, "Okay, thanks." Like, it just constant, like, development of who I was, and I
Yeah.
changed many times during the almost 10 years I was with him.
Mhm.
But really, that was the moment when I said, "Just trust me." And it got almost funny how much he trusted me, where we were in an exam once, because I was also his TC,
You did
and
every job in the office.
I did every job in the office as an orthodontist. Um, we were in a TC exam, and he's a chatty guy, just like I am. And I was trying to get the doctor portion down to a certain time so I could
Yeah.
keep the exam flow, which I lecture on a lot. And he would sit down and he would chat, and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, we're at like
You
10
have, like, the clinical
minutes."
team outside, like, stalking him.
Yes. It got so bad, we had to put like a shadow over the glass door hole so that the clinic couldn't look in, and like, "Brianna," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, he's talking." So one day I decided, and this is how much this shows trust too. He came in and I removed his chair, his clinical chair, so he couldn't sit
Mhm.
down in the exam. And
You
he
make
looked
it
over at me,
comfy.
and he, instead of getting comfy, he had to stand, and he looked over at me and kind of just smirked. And I was like, "Oh well, you have to go on and get in and get out." And
Just get
like,
in, get out. Yeah.
most doctors be like, "Where's my chair? Don't do that to me, you took me by surprise." He kind of looked at me like, "Nice move."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think too the beauty of this trust in the relationship that you guys have created was you know that we're human and that we are going to make mistakes.
Mhm.
And I think that's the hardest part of delegation is that it's like, okay, I'm going to trust you with this piece, not everything, but I'm going to trust you with this piece, and then you potentially could make a mistake here, and then I'm going to go pump the brakes. I'm taking it all back because now I'm panicking, and never mind. I'll just take it back and I'll do it myself. And then the burnout begins, and then right and w- I think a lot of times in any role when you don't, Brianna, that speaks a lot to you too, is that yes, he allowed you to grow but you were willing to receive it.
Yes.
And there are plenty of managers out there who are maybe not as open to going like, "You want me to read this? You want me to read this book? Like I have a million and one other things going on right now and now I have to read a book." Like I think that's personal and professional growth. So I think you have to be also in a growth mindset. Don't you? Where the two of you were this kind of, again, I said it in the beginning, this dynamic duo where you're like, listen, you have my back and I have your back.
Yeah.
And now we have this level of trust where not everyone wants to go to work and sit in a laundry room.
But I
Like,
think the other thing is also thinking that, I think what Bree was good about too is sometimes office managers have become the doctor by proxy. You're like, you can't just take
yes.
control either. So her role was to replicate herself too. So it's not like control gets transferred from me to her. She then is also,
Yes.
her task is also to grow other leaders in the practice, which is another reason I would say most of the time in my practice, those amazing people and team members, when they grow other leaders, so high performance is a gift. It's amazing. But the best team members that you have are those that replicate themselves because they don't control the process. So that's one other thing that I would compliment Brie on. It's not like she's like, oh, now I'm boss. And that's what happens in a lot of
Yes.
offices. So sometimes the doctor doesn't want to take the leadership role. And so the manager just becomes kind of that the other boss. And that's the problem. So what you got to do is grow leadership within your team because then she would get burnt out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yes.
want to necessarily just pass on her and then all of a sudden she's making all the decisions. So she needs to then from that on move it forward. So it just trickles down the team. But just to speak from the investment side, okay, I have to fly my team all the way out from Hawaii. So if you
Yeah.
know how to cost to fly into Hawaii, it's the same cost to fly out and you have to fly in, right? So I have to sometimes fly, 20, 30 team members to a meeting. And I just it's I just have to shake my head when I see
Mm,
doctors. Orthodontics is not an individual sport; it's a team sport, and they go to these meetings and they don't take their team. They get all excited about stuff, and then there's no wonder that when you go back to the office, no one wants to implement anything because you're only investing in yourself, and
Mm.
that's another thing. And it's a cost,
yeah,
for us, it's still a significant cost
sure.
to fly our team around to San Antonio or, LA or whatever meeting it is that we bring them to. And but it just pays huge returns. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that that's incredibly important. Two pieces to what you just said. One is you're growing her and you're empowering her to grow others. That is really, really, really important. And the other piece is you're right, Sean. It is, you guys know, you go to all the meetings. When I see every single year just the orthodontist, or he just brings like his manager, or he just brings like his top performing TC, and right, it's very interesting to kind of watch that when you're like, well, where's everyone else?
It's great.
I think it's really important because then you lose momentum. People that come back from these meetings are so pumped up to implement whatever it is
Yeah.
that they're willing to learn and to change and to grow. And then it falls flat because others do not have the same excitement once you get
Yeah.
back into that practice. So I hope that people took something from that coming from you because it's incredibly important. And I don't think people are doing it enough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree.
Bree,
Yes.
let's talk about you saying, and the both of you saying, it's okay to make mistakes and to learn from them. Because I think sometimes when you fall into the role that you were in, sometimes ego can get in the way. And that is very difficult to just self reflect and be like, whoops, we're going to have to pivot here. Or,
Yeah.
hey, team, sorry, we thought that this was really going to work, and actually we're going to have to go this way because it doesn't look like that was the right system. And right, like that's the evolution of small business, is
Right.
constantly having to be open to change and pivoting. You say that it's okay to make mistakes. What do you want to tell other leaders out there who maybe have a hard time doing that or admitting that to their team?
It is hard to admit it because everyone looks for whose fault is it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
you make a mistake, they're like, whose fault? Who did it?
Mhm.
Whose
Yeah.
idea was it? And so that becomes a hard pill to swallow when you're a leader in the practice. So you hire somebody and they don't work out, and you were a cheerleader for this person, and you're like, they're going to be great, this and that. And then they end up falling short or just not the right fit. And everyone looks at you like, well, you hired them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm like, but how would I have learned from that mistake if I had not made it?
Yeah.
That mistake made me better. So the next time I hire someone or the next person, I learned from that pain.
Yeah, the problem is that it's the culture of the practice. So I think in most businesses, it's the CYAA. So the problem is a toxic culture is where everybody's trying to avoid making mistakes.
Mhm.
That's where people impart blame. They're trying to find who's at fault. And mistakes have to be always a learning opportunity. I think the problem is that certain mistakes can be critical, of course. Something can be a fireable offense,
Yeah.
but the problem is that there has to be a safety in the practice in a business where the team understands that mistakes are part of it as long as you're learning from it, right? And I think you have to accept that as um as an opportunity for people to grow. And we all make mistakes. It's just the business owner just chalks it up. Oftentimes, the clinical team will, it's like 455 and they have to clip the distal end of a second molar, and they'll call me because if I make the mistake, then I'm the one to blame. No, that's just one example in orthodontics, but
That is
lots
a
of other things.
perfect example.
So if your team is afraid of making mistakes, my perspective is you have to think introspectively, say, what am I doing that makes them fearful of that perspective? You have to pivot from that end, that the culture needs to be like, you know what? You apologize, of course, but you need to review with your boss or whatever, like, what you're going to learn and shift from that, and sometimes you can turn lemons into lemonade or whatever it is, but sometimes it's a costly thing. I mean, some mistakes can be expensive.
Yeah.
We've done them.
We've done them. But you understand that you move on from it and you grow and you get better. But when you're fearful of mistakes, when you're trying to avoid making mistakes, that's when things can go wrong, because then your team is kind of like walking on eggshells, trying to avoid stuff, trying to avoid getting into trouble. And it's a tough situation, I think.
And I think that's what made Sean and I special too as well, is he always said to me when I made the mistake, he would always say to me, well, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna fix this together? And it wasn't like you, or it wasn't like a see what happened. It wasn't a finger pointer. It was more like, all right, what are we gonna do? How do we fix this? How can we prevent this from happening again? So it made me have a safe space, because I did not like to be wrong.
Yes.
But when I felt comfortable enough to go to him. And I think that shows him as a leader. And I think that's what a lot of practices are fearful of, is that the owner doctor is going to treat you a certain way because you made a mistake.
Mhm.
But if it's a safe place to go and just say, hey, listen, I messed up. I mean, I'm going to have to do A, B, or C. And if the doctor supports you, or the owner or whoever it is supports you and supports the decision, then that front shows to the team as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like that we're together, and it wasn't Brianna has to face up to her mistake in front of everyone and, to confess. It was more like we were together going, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is how we pivot.
Yeah. So, Sean, when Brianna took you by the shoulders, quite literally shook you, what was going through your head in that moment of, okay, I am gonna let some of this go and delegate, and like what happened on your end where you were like, okay, I'm willing to take this next step?
Yeah, I think in my mind sometimes I feel like, what's the worst that can happen? And once I purge that through my head, then I'm like, you know what? It's not like life is going to end, but if it does work out, it's a great opportunity. So, yeah, I think, trust is earned. It's not always just given. You do tend to trust people at the beginning, but at the same time, I think in business, you do earn that. And I could tell, obviously, because I hired her, was just like at some point you do say, well, if I hired her, I hired her for a reason, right? She knows certain things and you need to improve it. I mean, I honestly, I don't know, you're not the last hire, but I don't even hire people in my team anymore. I trust my team to the point that they bring in the team members that they bring in. I realized at some point that people talk it up to the doctor that they would fool me, and so most of the time I just meet someone new. So like, oh, hi, this is the medical assistant. Yeah. I literally, unless it's an associate doctor or like a managerial role or something like that. Yeah, I'm not involved in the hiring of or even the firing process. So
I love
it's
this.
very liberating, I have to tell you, from that end. And you do have to understand that, yeah, like I said, mistakes are made. I made bad hires and Brianna did too. So it's like,
We all
you do
have.
realize that as a doctor, you're not infallible, right? You still do make mistakes and we're all human. But some people, like Bree's really good at, relationship and seeing through people. Plus, like, I didn't do certain things. She's like, did you even like check on their Facebook? And, like, she would like scope people out. And I'm like,
we're like part of the
took them at their
FBI.
word, she seemed nice. He seemed nice or whatever. So you do realize that we're great at orthodontics. We're not good at everything. And that's the challenge with high performance team members, whether it's a doctor or TCs or managers and stuff like that, sometimes it's hard to understand that, hey, some people have a knack for things,
Yeah.
and that the team buys in much better when they're involved, right? That's the other thing. When we make a mistake, I made mistakes where it's like, why the heck did you hire this person? Versus like, hey, we hired this person. Like, you guys also made that decision, And so sometimes I'm like, well, you guys hired her. What are you going to do about it? And that's actually very liberating, you know what I mean? Versus me trying to salvage something, a decision. So that's
You didn't miss firing people.
no.
No,
Yeah.
no one does, right? I
And just to
actually
give you,
go
Cassie, an
ahead.
idea of what this evolution looked like, when I started with him, we were 8. Within 2 years, we were 28. By the time I left
Wow.
at 9 years, we were almost 50 employees, 4 doctors, 4 locations. And we were in a military state where the turnover was a little bit higher because we had a lot of military wives. So
Get a lot of
imagine,
churn, yeah.
I never not hired someone every month.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it it was a it was definitely a lot of lessons.
That's really interesting, actually, that this is a total pivot and we can cut it if you want. But when you're constantly hiring like that and you know that you're in a space that's constantly evolving with military, did you shift your mindset then of like, because a lot of people, back in the day, you guys, this, people were in practices for 20, 30 years. They never left. Like once they got there at 19, they left when they retired. And I think, obviously in 2025, that is not the same language that we speak in practices. Was there a point, Sean, you didn't grow up in that area. Like, was there a point where it just became the norm? And was that overnight? Like, did you guys kind of accept that you'll constantly be evolving in your training systems and getting new people in and things like that?
I got used to it, to be honest with you. It's not easy, and
Yeah.
it's still hard, but
Yeah.
it is how it is. Like, I tell the team sometimes, they're like, "Oh, we thought she was gonna be here forever." People move on. There's lots of life changes. Sometimes they go through divorce or they move, or it's a career opportunity. We've had team members that become dentists, they
I
become
love that.
moms. I'm happy when we get a stellar team member that moves on to, being a physician or a dentist or something like that,
Consultant.
or consultant. Yeah, yeah. You're a prime example of this. She left me, Cassie. Um, it's we live in a very transient state, so it's always the challenge. I will honestly feel like sometimes our team is stable, and I hate to think this way, but again, that's like my mind. Like, okay, when's something gonna happen? And of course,
Yeah.
like last year, we had like 6 pregnant ladies. Like most of them didn't come back. It constantly happens. So we've adapted a lot in the
Yeah.
team. A, solid training systems. B, most practices don't run in systems. So systems development process, they're like, oh, Susie knows that. If your FC
Oh.
is like it and the FC leaves, then you're like
Oh.
in terrible trouble. And Brianna helped me with this because it's terrible. Sometimes in my mind, I'm like, well, you're replaceable, and it's like, don't say that. Like, I'm like, I'm replaceable too as a doctor. That is very liberating and empowering. That when you leave or you take a vacation, you don't want to just like, oh my God, I'm gonna go back to work. And it's terrible because then you don't really have systems in place.
Yes.
So when you have systems in place, people are replaceable. And that sounds really bad. I know you like she's cringing right here probably because but I meant it in the best sincere term in a positive sense. It just means that you're there because of who you are,
Yeah.
but your role is completely replaceable. Any assistant can be trained within a short period of time, any financial coordinator, any manager. I mean, she knows this well. I mean, we run a management team, and so we have systems in place that if one of them moves on, if moves away, or takes another career, hopefully not, we can try to build a career and
Yeah.
opportunities
Yes.
that I want them to stay long term, right?
Yeah.
To have opportunity to move forward, to have career advancement, continuing education, great benefits, all these other things, and a life of purpose, a work that has great purpose and meaning. but people move on, and so you can't be beholden to that. And so
Yes.
when COVID and all this craziness hit, I was just like, man, that's par for the course for us. Because I mean, it got worse. It was bad, you
Of
know. It's
course,
like
of
it's
course.
really bad. But we we have developed the way that we practice is very well systemized using technology and lots of other things that you can take anybody off the street and with the right attitude and then train them pretty quickly from that end. And so that's where it becomes more an attitude. And that's the other thing too, right? Sometimes you get like incredible people that perform well, but they are toxic. They just shouldn't be in certain teams or be there. And the problem is that you're just afraid that if they leave, like it's all going to fall apart. We had a lot of team members like, well, once they leave, the practice is going to tank. I'm like,
Yeah.
nope. It's like,
Yeah.
we doubled last year. Nah, it's just, you got to have good people around you. And
Yeah.
that's really hard because sometimes we keep people based on, oh, this is the best closer. The TC is amazing. But if she turns everybody away and everybody's like quitting because she's toxic, she needs to go. I mean, you don't want to keep people like that.
No.
And I think that's what I learned. Bree helped me to understand that in my personal life as well as professional life, that sometimes you just gotta like, you know,
Cut
Yes.
ties.
cut ties because your inner peace, your team's health, the culture and the things that you have, take higher priority sometimes to
Yeah.
just being the best at what you do.
I tell everyone, I've said it for 10 years now. Anytime a team member leaves or comes in to your team, it's a brand new team.
Mhm.
It is a brand new team every time you hire someone new or someone leaves the practice,
I love
because
that.
your dynamic has to
Yes.
change. And
Yes.
that is two things in there: is being adaptable, and two is long-term success. So every doctor who's watching this, you have to treat everyone like they're going to be a long-term success and not short-term.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you
I
grow
think
sometimes out of people. Some people you adapt. When we were a smaller practice, at some point, just it's not for them, right? They have too many control issues with their department or whatever it is, and sometimes they do move on. So unfortunately, you know there's some that exit out. But I think overall, I'm happy with the team. You spend more time with them than you do with your own family at times. So
absolutely. You have
yeah,
to be
it's got to be
happy.
a good situation. Yeah.
And that's the thing. When you have this management team and you've created this beautiful leadership team, if if you do not feel good about coming in with this team every single day, though everyone else will feel it. So
Mhm.
you have to be happy with who you have. And you make such a valid point, Sean, that I don't think people say out loud enough is if you create systems, then if people are not a fit in your practice, they are allowed to move on. And sometimes those people that you may replace could fit in and do really well somewhere else. That doesn't mean that they don't get to evolve somewhere else. That means that they just don't fit here for whatever
Mhm.
reason. And I think when people get held in they're like pigeonholed into these, like, all my financials and I don't have any backup
Mhm.
here. I haven't created a system for it, and my turnover is really high and I need you.
Mhm.
You are not setting yourself up for success. So I don't think when you say something, yes, I think people like when they say you're replaceable, like people are like red flag. That's not true. Like, this is business. And if you create systems in this way, people can succeed and maybe they will thrive somewhere else much better, right? You hire for character, you train for skill, and that's really what it comes down to. I love this. I love it. I and by the way, this is like full circle moment is what you said in the very beginning, right? Of like you pay attention to these things, your personal, professional, team, all the things. So, I think it's a really, really beautiful thing, and
I think it's a beautiful thing what the two of you have created together. Let's talk about what you're doing now with OrthoMasterClass.
Yeah, so I mean, OrthoMasterClass I developed. Oh, you helped me with that. How
Uh,
many years ago?
2018.
2016, I think. 16.
16 is when we
Yeah.
started the idea.
Well, we started
Okay.
the immersion course, so we did an in-office course to see how we do
Right.
things. Yeah. Um, and then in 2018, we started online because when they come in, Bree is like, I have like doctors calling me for support calls for like months after the
Right.
course. Because the problem is that you know how orthodontists are. We go in there and our brain starts like revving up and then this and this and that. And then we go back to the office and we're like, how do we implement it? Because implementation is actually the hardest part. You get a lot of information. 9 times out of 10, you don't do anything with it. So we said, well, how do we support that? And that's where we went into, capturing videos, going online so that there was online resources. And I was bringing in associates. I realized like, okay, I have one associate. I'm spending X amount of time already, certain amount of hours per week already coaching this associate, that kind of stuff. Once I had two, then it's 2X. Three
Yes.
associates, 3X. That's just, I could tell that that was not sustainable nor pleasant to think.
We said, let's kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah, so we just systemize all the systems and things went into videos. I literally would spend certain times every week posting content, which would help my associates, and then we figured, it can help other doctors as well. So there's clinical things, leadership things, and we have a mix of obviously, Brianna does coaching and consulting, and I have my in-office course a couple times a year. So usually October or late January, early February.
Okay.
They can meet my leadership team and everybody who does everything. I know a lot of people like to go in office courses and they ask like, well, are they going to sit there and watch me do stuff? And I'm like, I'm a digital practice. I do stuff everywhere, wherever I am. And patients only come in usually for 5, 6, 7 visits. So it's not like, if they come to my office, even though like 80% of our practice is clear aligner treatment, they're going to see our braces patients because those are the ones that come in. So it's not like anything
Yeah.
too exciting. And then like, you want to look over my shoulder as I'm like repoing a bracket? I don't think
Right.
so. So most of the stuff we captured it in videos. And then, I always like anybody who's an amazing team member, right? Like Harmony is one example. Our lead clinical left. She goes to Vegas and I'm like, what can I do? What can I do? And we brainstorm. We're like, okay, she's going to be my clinch coordinator. She'll save me tons of time by doing a lot of the digital workflow on the back end, and she's still with us. And so the same with Brie. I'm like, what can I do to keep her, like keep some attachment there? So we still working together on that end. So she'll do coaching and all that kind of stuff. I love to do things, but I just don't have time. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think
And he's far.
I'm far. And if I were to spend my time instead of practice doing that kind of things, I don't think people would want to pay me what I would want to get charged for that.
Sure.
And honestly, a lot of the things they'll ask me, I'm like, I'm the last person you should ask. Like, okay, like, oh, how much do you charge for this? Or like your financial contracts. I'm like,
They would ask him, what's your face to fee? I'm like, he don't know that. Not supposed to know that. He's a doctor. His job is to care for the patient, not the money.
yeah,
Yeah.
doctors do what doctors should do. We know certain things that nobody else does. That's what you need to do. Everything else, I stopped being the IT person. I stopped, doing backups on the hard drives, cleaning 3D printers. What else was I doing? Like everything else. And just
Pretty shelf.
orthodontics. I know. So all those kind of things. So yeah, now we're more in a coaching role. I still love traveling and helping offices and whatever I can do to help impact them and help them from the doctor perspective. But Brianna can help a lot in team implementation.
OrthoMasterClass is kind of like micro learning too as well. So it helps the doctors
I love a good
understand,
micro learning.
because we all know that the doctors are like goldfish, right? Like they only contain so many things in one
yes.
minute.
Yeah. And just society as a whole, right?
Yes.
We're like scrolling as quick as humanly possible. Like this is what you're doing is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
told my team, they're like, I'm like, can you make a decision? I keep changing. I was like, well, we're gonna do like TED Talks, like short ones. And now it's like, can you do like TikToks? Like this is 60 seconds now. Like, I thought we were doing 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. And I'm like, no. It's gotta be like 60 seconds now.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's like a 90-second clip.
so my role is typically like the doctors, that sign up for OrthoMasterClass or go to the immersion courses with Sean. They go home and they like verbal vomit all the implementation, but doesn't have someone to do it. So that's when they would call me and I'd come in and be like, okay, how can I help?
Yeah.
And I help them with that aspect from Orlando. Because I tend to be a little closer than he is to them.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Listen, I can't thank the two of you enough for doing this and being with me and spending almost an hour with me and speaking your truth and sharing your journey. Truly, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Cassie.
Thanks for
You're
having us.
wonderful. We love these podcasts. I love that you're so real and this is real talk and people are getting to share real life experiences, growing pains, positive acknowledgements, everything. Cassie, you're doing a great thing with this podcast.
Yeah, thank you so
I'm
much.
so proud of you. I've also seen you evolve. So this
Thank
is
you.
like, to know you professionally and personally, I'm very proud of you.
Brianna,
Yeah,
thank
kudos to you. I know Brianna, I was like, oh, we should do a podcast. Then years ago, remember? I took a course on how to do that, and I give it to you. It's a lot
It's a lot of work.
and it's a whole different level of skill set, to do that. So kudos to you. Yeah, awesome job.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining me on The Bloom Effect, where we keep it real, keep it growing, and always keep it team first. If today's episode sparked something for you, an idea, a shift, or just a reminder that you're not alone, take a second and share it with your team or a fellow ortho leader. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a convo, and if you're loving the show, leave a review. It helps more practices find us and join the movement. And if you're ready to bring this kind of energy into your practice, visit discovereverbloom.com to learn more about working together. Until next time, keep leading with heart, keep building with intention, and keep blooming right where you're planted.